Hello and welcome back. The topic for this video now, we're going to switch gears a little bit and we're going to talk about genetics, okay? And when we talk about genetics, all right, we're talking about the inheritance of traits or characteristics of an individual, okay? It used to be, okay, long ago, folks used to believe that offspring were a blend of the mom and the dad because they knew that you looked a little bit like your mom, you may look a little bit like your dad, but you didn't look exactly like either one. So they kind of took the artist's explanation out on that and took it to be it's a little bit like mixing paints. If you take red paint and you take white paint, you're going to get pink paint, okay? So before we knew about chromosomes, before we knew about DNA, it's thought that blending was what accounted for the traits of an individual, okay? Turns out that part's not true, okay? What happened, all right, those traits are going to travel on chromosomes. So this unit is going to kind of tie into the previous units we've been talking about with DNA and cell division when we're talking about the chromosomes and how they segregate, okay? Those traits travel on chromosomes as what we now refer to as genes, okay? And we'll talk in the next video a little bit about the scientist who's really responsible for bringing this idea to the public, and that's going to be Gregor Mendel, okay? Although I will give you the caveat, Gregor Mendel did not coin the term genes or talk about chromosomes. He was talking just about traits because at the time that's what the technology allowed him to follow, okay? But we now know with the work from Watson and Crick and Rosalind Franklin that DNA is how the information from one generation is passed to the next generation, okay? So it's going to be traits that we're going to talk about. And I've got kind of a little introduction just because this lets me talk about something else that's a favorite of mine, and that's dogs, okay? Because dogs are a great example of how we have artificially selected for certain traits, okay? For something to be artificial selection, we have to have human intervention. Okay? So with dogs, dogs ancestrally are related to wolves, okay? What happened, those dogs were domesticated over time, so essentially kind of the first trait that was selected for was behavior, okay? You may have had, and the way I kind of picture it happening, which may or may not be true, is long ago, back before we had houses, back when people were living in caves, all right, there were wolves that were hungry. Food sources were slim. And so they would come around human camps and they would take whatever scraps the humans happened to throw away, all right? It was a way for them to survive. Now, those that kind of stayed in and around the camp were going to be the ones that were a little more docile, a little less wild, all right? So essentially what happened is you're selecting for a particular trait, whether it be behavioral or whether it be a physical trait, okay? Once we established dogs, then people started selecting for physical traits that they liked. Whether they liked a dog that had pointy ears or a dog that had floppy ears, okay? Essentially what happened is you had mutations that would happen, and humans would select for those particular mutations, okay? In this case, the floppy ears versus the pointy ears, okay? But dogs are a great example of artificial selection, how that happens, all right? And what ended up happening out of that is we have generated some purebred lines of dogs, all right? And I actually own a dog that's a purebred, all right? We did adopt her actually through Albuquerque Humane. How she ended up there, I don't know. But we've got our American Eskimo dog, okay? And she looks like just like every other American Eskimo dog out there. She's white, she has pointy ears, she has a black nose, she has brown eyes, she's got a curly tail, she's got a big fluffy coat. She looks like every other American Eskimo dog out there, okay? What tends to happen when you select for traits in that way, okay? You're selecting for physical characteristics. But what happens, because those characteristics reside on chromosomes, sometimes you get stuff that comes along with it that's detrimental, okay? And so you'll get genes that are what we now refer to as linked, okay? Things that are linked just mean they travel together. And there can be some genes associated with that now that are detrimental. Okay? So like with Schnauzers, which is another example of a purebred dog, Schnauzers tend to have cataracts, they tend to have diabetes, and that kind of goes along with the particular traits that were selected for that purebred dog. Okay? Then you've got what we can't say that word. Commonly, let's use that instead. Commonly referred to as a mutt, okay? And mutts are going to have an advantage because they're going to be more genetically diverse, okay? Our other dog that we've got is a husky mix, okay? We have no idea what he's mixed with for sure. My guess is he's mixed with Corgi. My husband happens to think he's mixed with Australian cattle dog. I think I'm right. In the end, it doesn't matter. The advantage is that you've got genetic diversity from having more combinations of genes, okay? So what ends up happening with mutts is there's more genetic variation, all right? And we refer to that as heterozygosity. So mutts are more likely to be heterozygous. And I know we haven't talked about what this term means yet, but I'm going to, don't worry, okay? It just means they're more likely to have a normal allele for something than to have a mutant allele, okay? Purebred dogs tend to be more homogeneous, meaning there's less variation, and that's why they all look alike, okay? My husky mix isn't going to look like every other husky mix because it's going to depend on what the husky is mixed with, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. The next video I've got, I'm going to talk a little bit about now Gregor Mendel and how he followed those traits in peas, all right? If you have any questions, please let me know.